I'd like to start by introducing our panel. Andrew Neff is on the board of directors of the Epilepsy Foundation, as the National Epilepsy Foundation, as well as the Northern California Epilepsy Foundation. Dayna Breman is from Los Angeles, and she volunteers as a mentor for epilepsy.com. Happa is an international artist and executive director of Scratch DJ Academy in Los Angeles, and he is an Epilepsy Therapy Project celebrity spokesman and advocate. Chanda Gunn, you all met this morning. Chanda is from Boston. She's an Olympic medalist, and she also is an Epilepsy Therapy Project celebrity spokesman and advocate. And Susan Axelrod is the founder, or the co-founder and chair of CURE, which is the Citizens United for Research in Epilepsy, and lives in Chicago. So what I'd like to do is ask our panel of experts several questions. And I think the first question I'd like to ask is for each of you to tell me what your experience is with epilepsy and how this affects your thoughts and feelings about new or future approaches and ways of treating epilepsy. Andrew, sure.
For me, I guess a big part of it for me was it took a number of years for me to develop a little bit of epilepsy maturity. Probably for the first 15 years or so, I didn't learn much about it. I was very shy. I didn't like to talk about it. You know, the neurologist would say, "Take this med," and I'd say, "Okay," and that would just progress. And a number of things happened, and I realized I had to take a different approach. And I started to get a little more proactive, researching it more, getting more involved, asking everyone I could find questions, and it opened a number of doors for me. I got involved on the nonprofit side on several fronts, and that has really helped me in a number of ways, and I've learned so much more about epilepsy, and one of the results is I'm now much more informed about some of the new treatments that are being presented in the last couple of days, and I'm more excited, where before I was very blasé and kind of frustrated, and I'm much more excited about what's happening. I think there's a couple exciting things over the next couple of years that could come to the market, so that's really helped me.
Thanks, Andrew.
I've been lucky on most of my life. I didn't have seizures per se that I knew about. A couple while I was growing up, so we never really knew that I had epilepsy. It was just, oh, she's just kind of spacey. You know, I had a couple, you know, one when I was a teenager, like 19, when I had my son after I had him. And then I had a hysterectomy, and all you know what broke loose. And then it took about 3 years for us to finally get me under control. I finally went to the doctor and said, I can't do this, I can't do this, we've got to get me a better medicine, got to get me a better medicine. And it took 3 medicines to finally get me under control. A combination of 3 medicines, and I'm very, very lucky that they gained control with the 3. And I finally got my license back 2 years ago, and I'm very, very happy. And as to these, I've been here for the past couple days, and all the new therapies and everything they're coming out with, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that little pen that can possibly give the diastat or whatever. Oh, I want that baby big time. I'm scared to come up and have another seizure, especially being able to drive. I want that pen.
I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was 17. I was a senior in high school. Felt like I was absolutely invincible and on top of the world. Had just been accepted to UCLA on a full academic scholarship, and literally at that point in time, my biggest concern in life was what I was going to do after school with my friends. And then all of that kind of got turned on its head. Ended up having a seizure one night in the middle of the night, waking up in the middle of the floor, not knowing what happened. again, the next night, the same thing, and then the next thing I know now, I'm dealing with this life-changing condition. So I, by the grace of God and my parents' trust and faith in me, I ended up going to UCLA. And the first couple of years of college were incredibly difficult, and it was rough. And now, what's interesting is my epilepsy, my seizures are only at night, and so they only happen when I'm in my sleep. So I think it was this weird sort of psychological thing as well, where then I didn't want to go to sleep, and ended up working incredibly hard. I was working like 20-hour days, and was working like 110-hour weeks at some point while still in school, which kind of worked to my benefit in a lot of ways now. Ended up starting several companies in the music industry. I've been a DJ for 16 years, traveled around the world DJing, still doing it, and have since created the world's leader in DJ education. So we actually teach people how to DJ, and it's now taken on a whole nother art form. So it's weird because I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be the person that I am if it were not for epilepsy, and it took me a while to get to the point where I was comfortable with it, where I was able to share that and share my story. It took me about 10 years to actually be completely public with my story, and hopefully to put my story out there to help other people with it as well. So I think now more than anything, my seizures are completely controlled right now. So I've been seizure-free for 4 years now, which is worth a round of applause. And it was all about, for me, it was about finding the right doctor, finding the right sort of therapy for my own personal condition. What is always in the back of my mind as well is, that these 4 years have been great, but, I know that things change, and, like, I will always have epilepsy in my life, and I love that fact. Because I think that makes me such a stronger person because of it. And for all the people that are in this room who are also affected by it, I see that as our common bond and the thing that gives us the most strength. So I'm just happy to be here.
Everybody heard me this morning, and I am somebody who was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was younger, and my seizures were under control. And I spent 14 years feeling like epilepsy was something that was completely manageable and not a huge obstacle until I had a breakthrough seizure. And now I'm continuing in the market for new therapies and new treatment. So it's something that doesn't ever go away. It could be 4 years, it could be 14 years, and I think it's important to continue to be involved and to be aware. This conference has been enlightening and exciting because I think somebody said that for a long time you go to the neurologist and you sort of they say, here, have some Keppra, and that'll control your seizures, and it doesn't, so here, we'll give you a little more Keppra. And I think it's really interesting to hear more about the options and to be able to go at your neurologist and say, hey, what about this option, what about this option? I am very excited about the smartwatch that's coming out at the end of the month. Thrilled about that, and thrilled about a lot of the other advancements, because there are people that need it either because of their seizures or side effects aren't controlled, and that's not quite acceptable yet.
Hi, I am the mother of a 30-year-old with intractable epilepsy. She just began to have seizures out of the blue when she was 7 months old, and it took us over 20 drugs and the MCT oil diet that you just heard about, and the regular ketogenic diet and vagal nerve stimulation and failed brain surgery to actually finally end up with Keppra. And I know Keppra got a little bit bashed this morning, but I want to tell you that she's been 12 years seizure-free on that drug, so I just don't want anyone to go away today and say I'm not going to. She's suffered, damage from the thousands of seizures she had growing up and is developmentally delayed, but in that 12 years of seizure freedom has just blossomed in ways that I never dreamt possible. So that's my hope for everybody with epilepsy, is that they have a chance to live a seizure-free life. So that is what, to answer these questions, which I'm looking at in front of me, that's what really excites me, and I think this is an incredible conference with all sorts of new and exciting things in the pipeline. With our foundation, we've really focused more on the earlier translational research. We want to have a better understanding of this disease, and in the meanwhile, these devices and these other things are super exciting. We ultimately want to put an end to epilepsy, be able to prevent it, be able to identify who's at risk, and hopefully one day actually prevent it. So I think this kind of meeting is just really, really inspiring, and it's great to hear all of your stories and feel the energy in this room. And I am sitting in here for Linda, who left, but I think she was so eloquent and passionate with her plea to all of us to get involved, to not accept seizures, to not accept the status quo, to not be complacent about this disease. And if we don't do that, nobody's going to do it on our behalf. So thank you.
So as we've heard this morning and over the past several days, Warren this morning said that there are 23 new therapies in the pipeline, 10 of which have been funded through the Epilepsy Therapy Project. What not only excites you, but what scares you about these new therapies, and why?
A couple of things. One thing that excites me is that I see a lot of things in the pipeline that are coming along, and we're seeing some good test results both in terms of AEDs and some of the devices. But there's a flip side of that as well. Some of the things that scare me is that some of these things have been in the pipeline for a while, and some are still awaiting approval that has been underway for a while. They've been approved in Europe and haven't been approved here. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that we face right now. So that scares me a little bit. Another thing that really concerns me is, while it's exciting to see I'm excited about some of the medications I saw this year. If you look at the efficacy rate for some of the AEDs and surgery options, they haven't improved that much over the last 10 to 20 years. So they've improved a little bit. Medications have a little better side effect situation right now, but overall, it hasn't. The bar has not risen that much, and so that scares me a little bit. In terms of, we have a lot of good things in the pipeline. I hope we've got one of those things that's going to bump us up a level.
Dayna?
What scares me is the medications. Have they really improved that much? They say even on the newer meds, the 3 meds that I'm on are all newer meds. I still have side effects. What are we really willing to give up to have control? I still have really bad side effects. My memory is shot. Yeah, I have control, but my memory's gone. These are things you give up. Yeah, I'll give up the memory because I don't want to hit the floor anymore. But are those things being looked at? So I look at the side effects that they have on the list, and these are things that the doctors say, oh, that isn't part of your side effects, that it says on the list here that I read on, that I've been here reading and looking at the side effects on the new things, and this scares me because they don't have some of these side effects that I have from some of these meds. That scares me. It scares me bad.
I really don't have a whole lot to contribute in that sense, but can echo what you're saying about some of these side effects. So I do have an experience that I went through where I was on a particular medication kind of earlier on, and I was an athlete in high school, nowhere near the athlete that you are, but I didn't go to the Olympics. But ended up, I think, after about 18 months, my ideal weight is like 165, 170 pounds. After about 18 months on this one medication, I was 245 pounds. And I remember going to my neurologist at the time and saying, hey, is there a side effect for weight gain? And he said back to me, this was my freshman year of college. He said, have you heard of the freshman 15? And I said, yeah, I have, but I've gained 75 pounds. And at that point, I was still working out and trying to eat right and was working with a personal trainer. But again, yeah, I think a lot of us have gone through that where, there is a side effect that we experience that maybe isn't on the list. And I think the one thing that this whole process has really taught me is I feel like I'm so much more in tune with my body now, in a way, and I know that not everybody gets the opportunity to go through that, but we've talked about it before, about kind of I can sense when things are wrong and when things are off, and I can certainly sense whether or not there's some sort of side effect, and I think a lot of you out there who are on medication can do the same. So I guess that's part of that is exciting in a way, and then I think part of that is also a bit scary.
Maybe I'm a little naive, but I don't have that many fears other than the experiences of somebody giving you something new and saying, this is going to work. Well, I've heard that before, and it didn't work. I have a similar weight story, except for that I was 165 and dropped down to 111. So I dropped 50 pounds and did the same thing. Is there a side effect for this? And no, not at all. It's just you. I'm really excited about treating epilepsy as a spectrum disorder and the comorbidity thing. I'm really, really excited about that. That makes me feel hopeful. I'm just really excited with the presence of people motivated and excited to advance therapies just in general, because being stagnant is not where we want to be at all. So if the next 23 therapies produce some answers for some of us, that's great, but in no means do I feel like this is the answer, the end to it all.
It's hard being last because everybody's pretty much said it all, and there's no pressure. Yeah.
We'll start with you next, Susan.
Thank you. That means I have to go twice in a row, though. I don't know. I guess, I would say what scares me the most is, when I get a call or hear about a young one, my daughter's age, who was just diagnosed and is, on their second or third medication and still having seizures. And I think, my God, 30 years later, what have we been doing? And that scares me that we could continue with that, but I think this is the most exciting time for research and for patient advocates who just seem to be rising up from all sorts of places. I think the internet, I'm pre-internet with my experience with epilepsy. We didn't even have the internet, so I couldn't. In fact, Lauren was diagnosed with an idiopathic seizure disorder, so I didn't know for 3 years that she even had epilepsy. I thought they were two distinct things. So there was a lot of ignorance back there, and there's a lot more knowledge today, and I think knowledge is empowering. I don't think that I know that. So I think it is really an exciting time, and I think what I'm hearing at this conference and from other scientists about really looking at addressing the problems of the third of patients who don't have seizure control, and looking at those comorbidities. I have to say, it's hard for me. We knew when we would put Lauren on a new medication, we'd kind of joke, wasn't funny, but we would have to joke a little bit, about like fasten your seatbelt, because we never knew what her disposition was going to be like, what the side effects were going to be. We too had the weight gain, the weight loss, hair loss, curly hair, straight hair, just bizarre thing, and huge personality changes, which usually, when she was little and couldn't really communicate, manifested themselves in behavioral problems. So it's hard for me as the caretaker to really know what those side effects felt like to her. I know what it was like to live with them. So again, it scares me to think that 30 years from now people might be sitting around and having the same conversation. But I'm really, really encouraged by what I'm hearing, and I think it's a real exciting time.
So we've heard from many people this morning. Dr. Lowenstein said so eloquently that in facing the challenges and opportunities that we have in front of us, you as people with epilepsy need to be very involved. And so my next question is, can you tell me why or why not you would participate in a research study? What are the pros and cons that you see in participating in research studies? And anybody can, you don't have to go in order, you can just jump right in.
Well, we did throughout Lauren's life because we had to try every new drug that came on the market. So in a way, we were not given much of a choice if we wanted to keep her alive. So we did that, and I have to say it was terrifying every time we had to sign away, her life, basically, and we basically just stopped reading the fine print on those forms when we signed her up for a study. I think that I think some of the problem, just to try to be a little bit provocative, that it's not entirely up to the patients to, it's not entirely the patient population's fault that we're having trouble filling up studies. I think there's something to be said about the design of the studies that may be an impediment to people actually signing up. Sometimes they're not really crafted real well. Mm-hmm. And so I would love to see that when clinical studies are designed, maybe there are patient representatives included there to really sort of pick their brains, so to speak, about how what would make a study more amenable to them signing up for it.
Or knowing where to go to even become active in a research study, not
Definitely.
Knowing what's available, or even maybe it being 300 miles away from you.
I don't think, or I've been told anyway, that this isn't exclusively a problem for epilepsy trials. So, there may even be things we can learn from other disease states that would inform us.
Yeah, I would just reiterate that in better publicizing the studies that are available. That's something I've been pushing for a while. It's supposedly on our Epilepsy Foundation national site. I still haven't seen it. It's there somewhere. Mm-hmm. I think most patients aren't aware of what's out there, and I think if that were better publicized, I think that would be a little more intriguing. That'd be more intriguing to me as a patient to start to say, hey, you know what, that's kind of a match for me. Maybe I'll go, explore that a little bit.
And also maybe for people with epilepsy, the transportation issue, other disease entities. It's easy to get to a study because you can drive yourself there, but with people with epilepsy, transportation is also an issue. Any other comments on that question? So the next question, how am I for time, Patty?
Do you want to open up and see if the audience wants to join too?
I will. Let me ask one last question of the panel, and actually of everyone. What would you like to tell healthcare professionals and researchers about what we should be doing? I know that's just opened up a big can of worms, but that's good.
Well, I'll just with one specific. I'm not going to have a real broad-reaching thing. I would really like to stop coming to meetings and hearing the first question in a SUDEP session be, should we talk to our patients? I think that's been done. Let's do it.
Andrew?
A couple of things for me. One, the theme of collaboration, which has been very evident over the last 3 days, is just amazing. It is just awesome to see the private sector, the public sector, neurologists, government even, nonprofits, all working together is really motivating, and I want to see that collaboration continue. Another thing that's big for me is perhaps I think there are opportunities in more detailed analysis of patients, and when it comes to decisions of what medications they should be on or whether or not they're a candidate for a particular study. A lot of times now it's just, well, what's your seizure type? Oh, you're this? Okay, here's your first one, here's your second, here's your third. And I think there are plenty of opportunities for additional, there's a lot of other factors. Do you have an aura? Do you not have an aura? Is it time of day for you? What are your triggers? Is it lights? Is it diet? Does diet play a role at all? And I think it would be pretty easy to come up with a list of 10 or 15 different factors that you could really, questions that could be asked every time. And then after a while, you would start to see some statistically significant trends in terms of, gosh, if they have an aura, they're more likely to react to a benzo than they are to, a sodium blocker or something like that. And so I'd like to see more questions asked and more details and then have that tracked, and I think you'd start to see better results, particularly from the studies, which is a big challenge right now.
Anyone else on the panel? So should we open it up to the audience? Would you like to ask our panel questions?
Thank you. I did participate in that study. There's a few problems with that. One is when they're asking you questions, you don't, like when you just spoke, right over my head. They ask you to jot things down. As you said, memory, I don't even remember the note or that I jotted it down, okay? When I don't know if you want me to tell you the medication, but I started on this medication. They would test me on the blood work and everything else after each time I went to visit. It got worse and worse and worse. Then I jumped into trigeminal neuralgia, all right? Then they put me on, yeah, begins with a T. And between, no, that's both of those, okay? I was on both. First was Topamax, then was Tegretol. I spent a good 2 solid weeks in bed with seizures. My doctor didn't call me back for 3 weeks to a month, okay? Left a message on my voicemail saying, well, if you still need me to call, you call me back. And I was like, wait a minute. So the problem I ran into mostly was the doctors didn't, this particular doctor did not listen. When he told me I had trigeminal neuralgia, he asked me if I went on the internet. He said, look it up. Okay. Then when I told him the side effects I was having, very severe problems with my eyesight, he jotted it down. Some little boy went blind. Okay. Then I had another problem. I went into a TIA. Then I went, that's it. I went through 10 doctors. I went through 10 doctors to finally find somebody who would communicate with me, work with me with medications. And you know how it is. You have to taper off one and to taper on one. It was a big, long, drawn-out thing. And the one study alone tossed me into so many different things that it took years. It took years. And I still will have all different types of seizures. And like I said, I'm on 3 different medications for that, 2 other ones for the side effects. It's nuts. It's nuts. But I did participate. They don't listen to what you're trying to tell them. That's a big problem with that, at least where I am from.
Thank you. Yes?
Thank you.
My name's Stephanie. I have a daughter. She's 5 years old, and she's on a very well-known epilepsy medication. She takes like 800 milligrams of it twice a day, and I have found that it makes her have this insatiable hunger that cannot be controlled. I have to lock my kitchen with like padlocks because my daughter's very strong for her age, and I've had the problem where I tell the doctors, I'm like, my kid's hungry all the time, and they're like, oh, that's just a normal kid thing. My daughter's 5 years old and weighs 80 pounds. I don't think that's a normal kid thing, and like, no matter how many neurologists I tell them, like, I think this is a side effect, they're like, no, that medication doesn't have the side effect of hunger. How do you tell, like, how do you feel when doctors tell you guys that stuff and you're like, you're a witness to it, you know that this is what's going on, and then you have a doctor just like tell you to your face, like, that's just a normal thing. And I'm like, you know, like, it sucks having to lock up my house from my own child. She should be able to go in and out and get snacks all the time, but, you know, I find her and she's eaten a whole cantaloupe or a whole watermelon. You know, it's like, then she gets sick to her stomach, and it's like, oh, I got to deal with all this other stuff.
Yeah, you have my mic? Oh, there we go, thanks. It sounds like, I mean, it probably sounds a lot simpler than it is, but, I mean, when that happened to me, I found another doctor, and, like, I was constantly looking for a doctor that would listen to me and understood what I was saying, and I definitely understand that that's definitely easier said than done, and sometimes it is like finding a needle in a haystack, but I think that, you know, over the years, I've met, especially at, like, things like this, I've met some really great doctors that listen more than they talk, and like that's a big thing, right? Because I mean, I think it's no secret that all of us have a different sort of, you know, reaction to these medications, and so it's important for that doctor to hear you out, and if not, then like look for a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion. I know that gets exhausting as well. But I think until you find somebody who really understands that, then yeah, like it's going to be even more frustrating.
I have one more question. With changing doctors, have any of you ever found the problem with your insurance company where they're like, oh, you've already gotten 2 opinions, that's your lot?
I have switched doctors before and had to where I had a second opinion, and I had to fight them, and I got the 3rd opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Ms. Tiffany.
Yes, I have. Hello, Mimi. We have a daughter who is developmentally delayed and 40, and I think one of the most exciting things that has happened most recently is the online diary, where we can cite her seizures, make notes as to what happened. I enter it daily and go on and put notes in. Her trips to the gynecologist are fantastic now because I also can record all of that information. That's a really positive thing. I've also had the pleasant experience of working with an epilepsy center where we have always been collaborative in my daughter's therapy. On the negative side, my daughter has drop seizures, and it's like living with a time bomb. That's the only thing I can say. When you know that this individual may fall at any moment, and you keep saying, well, we're lucky because this time she's okay, or this time she was sitting down, it's extremely difficult. That's my greatest fear. Another interesting thing about her, not to get too specific, is that her seizures occur between 8 and 9 in the morning. If she gets through that first hour, she seems to be okay for the rest of the day. But that's the difficult part. But I do see changes. Things like the collaborative effort with the doctor is extremely good, and I'm a big advocate of Stanford Epilepsy Center.
Thank you. And I think what she was referring to as far as the seizure diaries, they can be found on epilepsy.com, correct? Oh, Patty's going to talk about those later. Yes.
I have a question for all you guys. I'm going to come over here because I can't see you. And I wanted to tell everyone just something that I discovered. I have the gamut. I have Absence and tonic-clonic, and I'm on my 15th medication. And I think I told you guys before that I have adult onset. It's been 5 years. But I have a tingling that starts up my left arm, starts up my leg, and I know I'm going to have a tonic-clonic. I'm very lucky that I have an aura. I lie down. This has been the last 4 times I've discovered this. I tell anyone who's around me, pinch my fingers as hard as you can and ask me random questions. And it keeps my my physicalness grounded and alert somehow, and my mind, they just, what color is the sky? When did you graduate college? Who's the president? That kind of stuff. It keeps me mentally connected. I do twist and froth a little bit, but I don't go unconscious and I don't stop breathing. So just for an educational thing, that's been really wonderful. That and my dog, if he's around, he howls and licks me. But, and now I'm getting nervous. But I wanted to ask you guys, since you're all under control, my memory is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I would almost just give up my drive. I don't drive. But I would almost prefer to have my memory than drive at this point. And my doctor says it's not a side effect, that it's due to my seizures and silent seizures. So I'm wondering if you guys, since you're under control, has your memory gotten now? You said it's terrible. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. But has it gotten better, or do you think it's the meds? It's both.
Mine could even be old age. Who knows? But, it's really gotten bad. It has to where I lose words. I can stop in the middle of a sentence and forget what I was talking to you about. But it's gotten so bad that just midway, I'm lost. I can't spell like I used to. My speech is off compared to what it used to be. I'm a college grad, and I'm just like nothing like I used to be. But, hey, but I feel so much better than I was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I feel so much better right now. And I'm not inspecting the carpet anymore. That's how I feel right now, That makes me feel a lot better. I'm not walking into one room and then waking up in another room on the floor. That makes me feel a lot better. I'm not laying on the cement on some street somewhere. That's a lot better. I'm not in the emergency room every day. Those are things that I'm counting. That makes me feel a lot better.
Susan?
So I speak funny nowadays. That's okay.
I was just going to say, because I was watching your face when you heard her answer there. And the one thing, I'm not a physician, I'm not a scientist, but that I've learned over these years is how unique every single epilepsy patient is. So although I think we can learn a lot from each other, there just does not seem to be a predictable pattern, and the seizures will come and they'll go, and the effects of the drugs are unique and the effects of the seizures are unique. So as frustrating as that is, as much as it would be nice to sort of say, this is how it's going to turn out, I don't think we're at a place where we can. And that's sort of the nature of the disease and the nature of the science, I think.
Well, I've been told, go ahead, Andrew.
To answer, from my point of view, I still have refractory tonic-clonics, and I get it from both. And it comes in different ways, but I get it from some. I'm not on any of the primary medications anymore, but I would get it as much from those as I would from the seizures. A lot of it depends on not only seizure frequency, but the time, for me anyways, between seizures, how long. So both sides for me.
Would I give it all back? If I could have surgery, I'm not eligible. Mine go, they cross. I have secondarily generalized. I don't.
So unfortunately, I think we're out of time. I'd like to thank our panel of experts.